Hello, everyone. In 2003, the U.S. military faced one of its greatest challenges in the Middle East, capturing Saddam Hussein, the former president of Iraq. After losing power, he disappeared mysteriously, leaving behind no trace. Meanwhile, Iraq was plunged into brutal warfare, with many citizens still loyal to his regime. The mission to capture Saddam Hussein and bring him to justice was far more difficult than anyone had anticipated. Saddam was not only a dangerous adversary, but also incredibly cunning. He had vast wealth, extensive connections, loyal supporters, and dozens of safe houses. Somehow, Saddam always managed to stay one step ahead of the U.S. military, keeping them at a disadvantage. Over time, he was dubbed the Ghost, and the hunt for him became an almost impossible mission, like searching for a needle in a haystack. The story of Saddam Hussein's downfall became a dramatic chapter in the history of the 21st century. After the Gulf War, when the international coalition faced off against Iraq, all attention shifted to this notorious dictator. The U.S. government under President George W. Bush accused Iraq of possessing weapons of mass destruction. Additionally, the global war on terrorism and allegations of Saddam's brutal dictatorship spurred a large-scale military campaign to overthrow him. On March 20, 2003, the U.S.-led coalition launched the invasion of Iraq, quickly toppling the Ba'athist regime and occupying the capital, Baghdad. Although the city was bombed heavily in early April 2003, there was no sign that Saddam had been killed. His body was not found among the rubble of his bombed palaces, and Iraqi officers captured by U.S. forces insisted that Saddam had escaped. The hunt for Saddam Hussein turned into a special operation carried out by Task Force 121, an elite unit composed of the finest soldiers from organizations like Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, the CIA, and other special units. With about 100 elite personnel, their ultimate mission was to capture the former Iraqi president and bring him to trial. In the spring of 2003, Task Force 121 began searching throughout Baghdad. From grand palaces to secret tunnels, they searched relentlessly for any trace of Saddam Hussein, but he appeared to have vanished without a clue. Realizing that obvious locations like palaces were not ideal hiding places for a man on the run, they adjusted their tactics. Task Force 121 teamed up with the 4th Infantry Division, focusing on capturing and interrogating high-ranking Iraqi military officers. At the same time, they deployed advanced technologies to support the operation. Apache helicopters equipped with advanced radar scanned for any suspicious movements on the ground. Any unusual activity, such as a vehicle speeding, triggered the task force to carry out checks. The 4th Infantry Division, also known as the Digital Division due to its advanced technology, played a crucial role in the operation. Despite operating in an area almost devoid of wireless internet, they set up their own communication network. This system allowed continuous contact between units and the exchange of emails from their tanks and armored Humvees. Compared to the modern technology of today, this may seem primitive, but at the time this coordination was a significant step forward, providing essential support for the mission to capture Saddam Hussein. Many times the U.S. forces thought they were closing in on Saddam Hussein, but each time they got close, he managed to escape in extraordinary ways. Saddam never stayed in one location for more than a week, and sometimes he would change his hideout just hours after settling in, because he knew that if he was captured, a grim fate awaited him. On December 21st, 2003, one of Saddam Hussein's former allies unexpectedly betrayed him, providing the U.S. forces with information about a possible hideout. The very next day, around 300 to 400 soldiers from the 101st Airborne Division and Task Force 121 quickly surrounded a house in Al-Dor, near Tikrit, preparing for a decisive move in the operation to capture the dictator. When the U.S. forces approached their target, a fierce gunfight erupted that lasted for 4 hours. The intense battle left several members of Task Force 121 wounded. Eventually, the U.S. military used grenade launchers and rockets, especially the AT-4, to bring the fighting to an end. When the gunfire stopped, the soldiers rushed into the house, but an eerie silence greeted them. Saddam Hussein was not there. Instead, they found the bodies of Saddam's 2 sons, Uday and Qusay Hussein, his nephew Mustafa, and a bodyguard. While the main target had not been captured, this operation had removed important members from Saddam's inner circle, disrupting part of his support network. The hunt for Saddam Hussein was getting closer to dismantling his entire concealment system. The informant who revealed the location of Saddam's sons was Nawaf al-Zaydan, a close friend of the family, who received a reward of $30 million. This was part of a strategy to encourage Iraqis to provide information about Saddam's whereabouts. The U.S. government had previously offered a $25 million reward for anyone who could provide information leading to Saddam's capture. These rewards encouraged more Iraqis to come forward with what they knew, helping the U.S. forces gather more crucial leads. Meanwhile, the U.S. military continued to target high-ranking Iraqi officers, who were subjected to thorough interrogations. Intelligence experts meticulously examined computers, photos, mobile phones, and anything else that might contain valuable clues. Step by step, the search team reconstructed a network of individuals who had been involved in hiding Saddam Hussein. This network included direct family members such as his mother and sisters, distant relatives, servants, close friends, former bodyguards, neighbors from his hometown, and even his lovers. The list grew to hundreds of people, making the task of capturing Saddam seem almost impossible. In an interview, Lieutenant General Ricardo Sanchez, the commander of the coalition forces in Iraq, described the search as looking for a needle in a haystack. Yet in the midst of the desperation, the situation suddenly took an unexpected turn, marking a turning point in the operation to capture Saddam Hussein. In mid-November 2003, the search team made significant progress in their hunt. They captured several members from the families who had been hiding Saddam. During their interrogations, these individuals revealed the names of other Iraqis still loyal to the former president, bringing the U.S. forces closer to their goal. In the early hours of December 13, 2003, a tense atmosphere hung over the city of Tikrit. A special task force, including elite soldiers from Task Force 121 and the 4th Infantry Division, was summoned. They received orders to carry out a top-secret mission called Operation Red Dawn. Although they were only told they were hunting a high-value target, many in the team believed this could be their chance to capture Saddam Hussein. However, there were also several other high-profile targets on the list at the time. The operation was launched after intelligence identified two suspicious locations codenamed Wolverine 1 and Wolverine 2 near the city of Tikrit. Delta Forces C Squadron, along with Intelligence Support Agency, ISA, personnel, and the 1st Brigade Combat Team were tasked with carrying out the raid. Approximately 800 soldiers equipped with night vision goggles advanced towards the target area and began systematically searching each house. Initially, all efforts seemed futile, with no trace indicating that Saddam Hussein had been there. Frustration began to spread, and there were doubts that Saddam had been warned in time and managed to escape to another location. However, Colonel James Hickey, the commander of the operation, decided to maintain a secure perimeter around the farms at a safe distance. This decision was soon rewarded when the forces spotted two armed bodyguards attempting to flee from a small shack. It was later revealed that the farm belonged to Qais al-Namek, a close aide of Saddam Hussein. The two individuals who fled were Qais al-Namek's sons. After capturing them, the military approached the modest shack, which was hidden among fruit orchards and a sheep pasture. This shack would become the closest the search had come to reaching its dramatic conclusion. Inside the tiny shack was a scene of shocking poverty. The kitchen contained only a basic sink and stove with minimal food. The bedroom was sparse, with 2 beds, dirty clothes scattered everywhere, a few books, and a painting of Noah's Ark hanging on the wall. There was no proper bathroom, just a hole dug in the ground beside a simple shower head. But there was no sign of Saddam Hussein. As the soldiers were about to lose hope and prepare for extraction by helicopter, an unexpected event occurred. A soldier accidentally kicked a prayer rug on the dirt floor. Beneath the broken tiles and soil, they discovered a thin foam cover hiding a narrow, dark hole. There were faint sounds from within indicating someone was hiding. It was a spider hole, a small, well-camouflaged hiding spot, and the tension was palpable as the soldiers debated how to approach it safely. The person inside could be an armed bodyguard or even a suicide bomber. According to some reports, just as one soldier was about to throw a grenade into the hole, 2 hands suddenly rose from the darkness, signaling surrender. A man slowly emerged from the hole, his appearance starkly different from the once powerful dictator. His hair was disheveled, his beard gray and unkempt, his clothes filthy and smelling. However, no one on the team could mistake his identity. In broken English, he declared, "I am the president of Iraq, and I am willing to negotiate." After months of arduous searching, Saddam Hussein, who had once dominated the Middle East for 24 years, was finally captured in a dark, cramped hole, a stark contrast to the lavish palaces he had once inhabited. The hiding place was just 2.4 meters long and 1 meter wide, barely enough space to lie down in an uncomfortable position. The small bunker had only a tiny ventilation pipe and a small fan to circulate air, but it was still suffocating, filled with foul smells and insects. The man who had once lived in luxurious villas decorated with gold and diamonds was now forced to hide in such dark holes to survive. And in the end, everything came to an end. At 8:26 p.m., Saddam Hussein was officially captured. Less than an hour later, he was flown directly to the command center of Operation Red Dawn. Thereafter, his identity was conclusively confirmed. Saddam was transferred to Baghdad for further interrogation. Within hours, images of Saddam Hussein's capture spread around the world. In these photos, he was no longer the powerful, wealthy dictator he once was. Instead, he looked like a disheveled, gaunt man, a stark contrast to his previous image. The Pentagon declared Saddam Hussein a prisoner of war, citing his role as commander-in-chief of the Iraqi armed forces during the Gulf War. In 2004, his trial began, drawing global attention. 2 years later, the Iraqi High Tribunal convicted him of a series of crimes against humanity. He was sentenced to death, and on December 30th, 2006, Saddam Hussein was executed. His death marked a significant turning point in the history of Iraq and the Middle East, bringing an end to a bloody chapter of dictatorship. However, the event did not bring the stability many had hoped for. Instead, Iraq continued to spiral into deep political and social unrest. The weapons of mass destruction that the U.S. had cited as the primary justification for the invasion were never found, severely damaging America's credibility on the international stage. Saddam Hussein's death did not end the war in Iraq. Instead, the conflict escalated, particularly as Iraqi insurgent groups shifted to guerrilla tactics, turning the war into a long and nightmarish struggle for U.S. forces. Over the next 7 years, Iraq became the epicenter of violence and chaos. Brutal clashes claimed the lives of over 100,000 Iraqis and 4,400 American soldiers. The scars of war are still deeply etched in this land. Even today, Iraq continues to struggle to heal the immense social, political, and humanitarian wounds it sustained. Operation Red Dawn may have closed a painful chapter in history, but it also opened the door to even greater challenges for the country in the decades to come. The story of Saddam Hussein is a vivid testament to the downfall of a dictator who ruled through violence and repression for decades. While his capture and execution were seen as successes by the U.S. and its allies, but they raised serious questions about the legitimacy and consequences of the Iraq invasion. The failure to find weapons of mass destruction further underscored that the war was driven by a dubious rationale. After Saddam's death, Iraq remained mired in instability, demonstrating that toppling one individual does not address the root causes of a nation's problems. This story serves as both a historical lesson on the nature of power and decline and a stark reminder of the long-term consequences of war and military intervention. What are your thoughts on Saddam Hussein's life? Was the sentence he received justified? At 12:30 a.m. on May 1st, 2011, a U.S. Navy SEAL team embarked on a top-secret mission. Their target was none other than Osama bin Laden, U.S. most wanted terrorist. This fateful night would mark the end of the most extensive manhunt in U.S. history. In truth, neither the CIA nor the U.S. military could have anticipated the complexity and difficulty of capturing bin Laden. Hollywood's portrayals of the CIA's hunt for bin Laden only reflect a fraction of the reality. Few people know that between May 1998 and May 1999 alone, there were 2 missed opportunities to capture bin Laden alive and 8 chances to eliminate him, all of which slipped away. The accounts of the reconnaissance teams, those directly involved in tracking bin Laden, reveal a relentless race against time. They were keenly aware that every passing second could mean innocent lives were at stake. This 15-year chase unveiled numerous hidden truths and ultimately brought America's most notorious terrorist to justice. It took years of investigation for the U.S. government to identify al-Qaeda, a then little-known terrorist organization, as the group responsible for the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. This was al-Qaeda's first attack outside Muslim-majority countries, marking its emergence on the global terror map. The attack stunned the U.S. intelligence community, making them realize that the threat of terrorism in U.S. was no longer confined to isolated shootings or kidnappings. Recognizing this danger, President Bill Clinton ordered the CIA to gather all possible information on this emerging terror group. Mike Scheuer, a senior CIA analyst, was tasked with leading a special team to undertake this mission. Scheuer recalls feeling fortunate to have been appointed as the team leader in late 1995. They began operations that December. He named the new unit Alex Station, inspired by his 2-year-old son's name. Alex Station was a unique unit in CIA history established with one purpose: to track down Osama bin Laden, suspected leader of al-Qaeda. When Alex Station was created, it was the first time the CIA had received significant resources and funding to focus on a single individual. Surprisingly, as the unit recruited personnel, most applicants turned out to be women. Scheuer remembers, even when the team was very small, only about 10 or 12 people, around 7 or 8 of them were women. One of the first female members was Cindy Storer, an Afghanistan expert. Cindy's responsibilities included liaising with policymakers, even the president, to report on global terrorism developments. The women of Alex Station quickly bonded and formed a close-knit group. Cindy shared, "We became incredibly close. I call them my sisters in arms." This group of women, known as the Sisterhood, earned a reputation for excellence in their work. Scheuer jokingly commented, "Women are extraordinary. I often joke that if I could, I'd hang a sign on the office door saying, 'Men need not apply.'" From its inception, Alex Station's mission was clear: to track Osama bin Laden and assess the real threat he posed to U.S. national security. To start, they conducted a meticulous and systematic investigation through the CIA's existing databases. Slowly, a picture of bin Laden began to emerge from scattered fragments of information. Born into a billionaire family in Saudi Arabia, bin Laden's life took a different path at 22 when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. Like thousands of other young Muslims, he crossed borders to support the Mujahideen in their jihad against the Soviets. Initially, bin Laden presented himself as a humanitarian representative of his wealthy family. He frequently visited clinics, met wounded Mujahideen fighters, and provided financial support to their families. During the Cold War, with the U.S. and the Mujahideen sharing a common enemy in the Soviet Union, bin Laden's activities attracted little attention. One analyst recalled, "We didn't pay much attention to him then because he seemed to be on the right side, fighting against the Soviet army." However, the women of Alex Station soon began to notice unusual signs. Bin Laden gradually gathered a following and started engaging in more radical actions. A witness recounted, "There was a group of Arabs out there who didn't quite blend in with the rest of the Afghan resistance. If you wandered into their territory uninvited, they'd shoot without asking questions." The extremism within bin Laden's group became more pronounced, and attacks targeting aid workers increased. Bin Laden's name came up repeatedly in each incident. Declassified documents later revealed that around 1985, bin Laden had transformed from a freedom fighter into a true terrorist. By the 1990s, his activities grew increasingly radical and dangerous, and he expanded his financial network to support terrorist cells in countries like Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan. The peak of these activities was the 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center in New York, marking an escalation in bin Laden's terrorism strategy. This attack led to his expulsion from both Saudi Arabia and Sudan, two countries that had once provided him safe haven. By 1996, the Sisterhood of Alex Station had traced Osama bin Laden to Afghanistan, where he found a powerful ally, the extremist Taliban regime. The Taliban not only supported bin Laden's extremist ideology, but also provided him with a secure base to expand his terrorist network. However, a crucial question remained. Was bin Laden merely a financier, or was he directly involved in terrorist operations? An unexpected answer came about a year later when a source from a Sudanese training camp voluntarily approached the U.S. Embassy, willing to reveal critical information. One analyst recalled, "The source gave us details about al-Qaeda's organizational structure, their methods of funding, weapon procurement, and even their pursuit of biological and nuclear weapons." This intelligence painted an entirely new picture of bin Laden, not just as a financier, but as a direct orchestrator of missions, organizer of training camps, and even a writer of attack instructions. Notably, bin Laden himself had named his organization Al-Qaeda, meaning the foundation in Arabic. The name reflected his grand ambition to establish an organized system for fighters worldwide with entry points through Afghanistan or Pakistan. The analytical team at Alex Station discovered that bin Laden was developing a master plan from his Afghan stronghold, transforming violent jihad into a global phenomenon. One analyst remarked, "Al-Qaeda was an organization unlike any we'd seen before in terms of manpower, discipline, and its global reach." This view was reinforced in August 1996 when bin Laden officially declared war on U.S., initiating a series of dangerous attacks. Alex Station immediately recognized this threat, and by May 1998, they had obtained precise intelligence on bin Laden's location, drafting a capture plan for the president's approval. However, the White House hesitated, worried about the political repercussions. An Alex Station member revealed, "We had the opportunity to capture bin Laden, but policymakers feared the fallout if he were killed in the process." When their warnings went unheeded, Alex Station cautioned President Clinton that it was only a matter of time before bin Laden launched a large-scale attack. This prediction quickly came true. 2 consecutive terrorist bombings targeted U.S. embassies in Africa, resulting in horrific losses, killing hundreds and injuring thousands. Al-Qaeda claimed responsibility, with bin Laden declaring these attacks as merely the beginning. After the Africa bombings, frustration and helplessness set in as bin Laden seemed to vanish. He grew increasingly cautious, never staying in one place for long and often traveling with multiple convoys heading in different directions to confuse trackers. Modern communication methods were abandoned. Instead, he relied on a traditional courier network to ensure his security. In response, Alex Station's sisterhood shifted focus to bin Laden's courier network, and within 2 weeks they located him near al-Qaeda training camps in Khost. This time, President Clinton ordered a large-scale missile strike known as Operation Infinite Reach. Although several al-Qaeda members were killed, bin Laden narrowly escaped. It took another 9 months before the team picked up his trail again, this time at a house near Kandahar. However, when they proposed a new operation, Clinton held back, fearing civilian casualties since bin Laden's house was close to a mosque. The CIA continued to submit action plans, but from 1998 to 1999, every opportunity was rejected as too risky. Nonetheless, Alex Station remained undeterred, employing advanced technologies such as drones and voice recognition to track bin Laden. They discovered he was running a dangerous training camp near Kandahar, where he taught bomb-making and assassination techniques. Reports later indicated that some trainees were being sent around the world to enroll in commercial flight schools, sparking fears that al-Qaeda might be planning a major attack. As tensions escalated, the sisterhood at Alex Station pushed for more decisive action against bin Laden. They proposed a plan to use drones equipped with high-precision weapons to eliminate bin Laden without harming civilians. President Clinton approved, but the operation had to be postponed due to harsh weather and Afghanistan's winter conditions. By spring, however, a new administration under President George W. Bush took office, and the plan was shelved as priorities shifted. One expert observed that U.S. presidents from Ronald Reagan to Bush had been trained in the Cold War mindset, which made it difficult for them to confront a new and elusive threat like al-Qaeda. Many policymakers struggled to see bin Laden as a serious danger. One analyst explained that they couldn't conceive of a tall, thin Saudi man in a desert eating goat meat as a real threat to the U.S. Instead, they prioritized more familiar threats like China, Russia, Iran, and drug trafficking. Despite numerous warnings from intelligence agencies, but the Bush administration felt they lacked specific and immediate information to justify taking action to eliminate bin Laden. In the spring of 2001, a CIA-proposed drone strike was also turned down. Meanwhile, the sisterhood at Alex Station continued monitoring intercepted conversations and began hearing disturbing phrases like "Day of Doom," "racing against time," and "people will die." By the summer of 2001, the team reported that a major attack was being planned on U.S. soil. However, without concrete details, it was difficult to persuade policymakers to take action. An expert commented that decision-makers wanted to know precisely who would attack, when and if it could be stopped in time, details that were almost impossible to ascertain. The situation grew more difficult as some within the CIA viewed Alex Station as an obsessive group overly focused on bin Laden. Nevertheless, the team remained steadfast. A member described it as the best of times because they were working with like-minded, dedicated individuals, but also the worst of times because they were struggling to convince others about a threat that defied conventional understanding. In the final months before the 9/11 tragedy, concerns about an imminent attack peaked, leading the CIA director to request an urgent meeting with President Bush. Instead, he met with National Security Advisor Condoleezza Rice, urging the government to shift to a wartime footing. A month later, security analysts briefed President Bush directly at his Texas retreat, but by this point, the threats were becoming clear. Declassified daily intelligence briefings now reveal that the CIA believed bin Laden supporters were already on U.S. soil plotting an attack. However, lacking specific information on the timing, location, and targets, so President Bush felt there wasn't enough basis to act. A meeting with top national security advisors was held to review the reports, but they also found insufficient details to make a definitive decision. The 9/11 attacks claimed 2,900 lives and inflicted economic losses estimated to exceed $200 billion, about 2% of the U.S. GDP at that time. It was the worst terrorist attack in U.S. history, exactly the kind of catastrophe the CIA had warned about since the hunt for bin Laden began. After September 11th, the search for bin Laden intensified with renewed determination. The U.S. intelligence community now faced a painful reality about its limited understanding of al-Qaeda. An analyst admitted that if you had asked them who ran al-Qaeda, what it was, or where it operated, they would have struggled to answer. The event abruptly and drastically shifted everything for Alex Station, which had warned of this threat for years. The feelings of frustration and responsibility grew overwhelming. One member shared that on September 11th, while they hadn't known the exact time or target, but they had long been aware of al-Qaeda's methodical plan to send Arabs to the U.S. to train on 747s, a scheme dating back to at least 1995. The emotional shock to the nation after September 11th was undeniable. One expert noted that U.S. eyes and ears, the first line of defense against terrorism, had failed to protect the country. President Bush swiftly expressed his resolve to retaliate, declaring, "I want justice," and displayed an old Western-style poster reading, "Wanted dead or alive." This statement marked a significant turning point in the relationship between the Bush administration and the CIA team dedicated to tracking bin Laden. After 2001, Osama bin Laden became the most hunted man in history. The world had changed completely after September 11th, and the CIA was granted unprecedented authority and resources. A CIA officer recalled that the day after the attacks, anything they requested from Congress was immediately granted. They quickly expanded Operation Enduring Freedom threefold, marking the first time in U.S. history that a war was explicitly launched to eliminate a terrorist organization. President Bush declared to the world that the U.S. would make no distinction between terrorists and the nations that harbored them. All would be held accountable. Thus, U.S. officially sent troops into Afghanistan under the banner of counterterrorism with a fierce determination to find bin Laden. CIA operatives were sent to the front lines, closely coordinating with special forces to monitor and intercept Taliban and al-Qaeda activities. The hunt for bin Laden led them to operations along the Afghanistan-Pakistan border, and a CIA agent recounted that they got incredibly close to him. In the final days of 2001, we could hear him on the radio. An agent said, "We knew he was only a mile or two away." However, a controversial strategic decision by the U.S. military entrusted Afghan allies with the task of capturing bin Laden. After bin Laden escaped from Tora Bora, the CIA discovered a disturbing truth about the Afghan commanders assigned to capture him. An analyst revealed that background checks on these commanders showed both had fought alongside bin Laden against the Soviets. The CIA warned the military of this connection, but the warning went unheeded. As a result, bin Laden vanished across the Pakistani border. This incident highlighted the complexities of working with local allies and the difficulties of tracking an enemy who was familiar with the terrain and had a vast support network. As bin Laden remained at large, the Bush administration began shifting resources toward the looming conflict in Iraq, weakening efforts to track him down. President Bush even declared that bin Laden was no longer a priority, a stance that many experts strongly disagreed with. For the CIA's sisterhood, the following years were frustrating. Bin Laden had become a master of evasion, leaving behind few clues. He even released videos from mysterious locations, seemingly taunting the CIA's efforts. With little progress, the CIA fully shut down Alex Station in late 2005. This decision not only reflected the failure to capture bin Laden, but also underscored internal conflicts within the agency. However, a change in administration brought new energy to the hunt for bin Laden. President Barack Obama made finding and capturing or killing bin Laden a top priority. CIA Director Leon Panetta received a clear mandate to bring bin Laden to justice. With renewed support, the CIA assembled a team of specialists, including many women from the original sisterhood. They began by reassessing past failures, determined not to repeat old mistakes in the pursuit of the world's most dangerous terrorist. The CIA team realized they needed to change their approach. They couldn't rely on intercepting phone calls or emails, as bin Laden had abandoned all electronic communication. This led to a breakthrough as they decided to turn bin Laden's strength into his weakness. An analyst explained that they knew he wasn't using electronic communication, so he must have a courier. This insight would eventually become a critical step in their relentless pursuit. If they could determine who this courier might be and look closely at those who had been close to bin Laden, the pool of potential individuals would narrow significantly. With this new strategy, the CIA team focused on identifying bin Laden's courier, hoping he would lead them to bin Laden's hideout in Afghanistan. They launched a large-scale interrogation campaign, interviewing every possible source at secret locations worldwide, including high-value detainees at Camp Delta in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Although no one directly revealed the courier's identity at first, but the analysts began noticing promising clues. One particularly revealing detail was that several high-ranking detainees tried to downplay the significance of a specific name, al-Kuwaiti. This led the CIA to suspect that al-Kuwaiti was far more important than the prisoners were willing to admit. A CIA team was sent to Pakistan to track al-Kuwaiti. They monitored his calls and followed him to Abbottabad, a small town 30 miles north of Islamabad, where an elite Pakistani military academy is located. Al-Kuwaiti's behavior only heightened the CIA's suspicions. One analyst noted that he acted like someone who didn't want to be followed, often retracing his steps and using his phone only in specific areas. These were classic signs of someone trying to avoid detection, exactly the behavior they expected from bin Laden's courier. To verify their suspicions, the surveillance team delved into al-Kuwaiti's past. They discovered that in 2004, al-Kuwaiti had purchased land in Abbottabad's outskirts and built a two-story compound worth $1 million designed to house a family of 12. After months of tracking, the CIA team identified a 1-acre compound in Abbottabad that al-Kuwaiti frequently visited. The compound displayed many suspicious features: high walls to block visibility, no internet or phone lines, and a mysterious third floor that wasn't included in the original blueprints. Its self-sustaining design, complete with food gardens and a waste disposal system, only deepened the CIA's doubts. An analyst remarked that the compound resembled a secure hideaway, almost like a sanctuary. They began to wonder if the person being concealed there was in fact Osama bin Laden, whom they had hunted for over a decade and a half. Despite the numerous signs, but confirming bin Laden's presence remained a major challenge. The compound's security was so tight that the CIA could not directly observe the mysterious man inside. After weeks of continuous surveillance, the CIA noticed a tall man walking in the enclosed garden. He carefully shielded himself with a tarp, seemingly to avoid detection by spy satellites or drones. Within the CIA, he was called the Pacer. Although they had gathered considerable circumstantial evidence, but they still couldn't confirm the Pacer's identity with absolute certainty. Nonetheless, they decided to present their findings to President Obama. Estimates of bin Laden's potential presence at the compound ranged from 50% to 90%, depending on the official's viewpoint. After careful deliberation, President Obama authorized the CIA to prepare for a raid. A bombing mission was ruled out as it would destroy crucial forensic evidence needed to confirm bin Laden's identity. Instead, the CIA proposed a helicopter raid involving SEAL Team 6, the Navy's elite Special Forces unit. When presenting the plan to President Obama, CIA officials emphasized that this could be their best chance to capture bin Laden, reminding him of missed opportunities in the past. Finally, President Obama agreed to proceed with the raid. After 15 years of searching, the mission to capture or kill Osama bin Laden was set for May 2011 under the name Operation Neptune Spear. On the fateful night of Neptune Spear, 24 elite SEAL Team 6 members were temporarily placed under CIA command to avoid diplomatic tensions with Pakistan, a country officially prohibiting any foreign military forces from entering its airspace. At 11 p.m. local time, the SEAL team members divided into two groups, boarded two Black Hawk helicopters, and departed from a U.S. military base in Afghanistan, prepared to fly 300 kilometers into Pakistan. Upon arrival, the tail of the first helicopter accidentally struck the compound's perimeter wall, but the incident did not dampen the team's spirits. They and the American people had waited too long for this day. 20 SEALs swiftly exited the damaged helicopter, donned night vision goggles, and stormed the compound. 4 team members guarded the main entrance, firing at anyone who appeared in an effort to prevent bin Laden's escape. After neutralizing everyone on the first floor, they quickly moved upstairs and shot a young man, later identified as bin Laden's 23-year-old son. Finally, they found bin Laden hiding in a room. Without a word, they fired 2 shots from an M4 rifle. One of his wives tried to shield him, but the 5.56 millimeters rounds went through her and struck bin Laden. His body was then extracted from Pakistan by helicopter. By the time Pakistani forces arrived to assist, the SEAL team had already left. The damaged helicopter was destroyed on site. Once DNA testing confirmed the dead man's identity as bin Laden, U.S. forces decided to bury the body according to Islamic customs. His body was washed, wrapped in white cloth, and given a prayer with the assistance of an Arabic interpreter to prevent his burial site from becoming a shrine for followers. The U.S. military chose a sea burial. His body, along with his legacy of brutality, bloodshed, and hatred, was consigned to the ocean's depths. President Obama later addressed the nation and the world about the operation's success. Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the U.S. has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden, the leader of al-Qaeda and a terrorist responsible for the deaths of thousands of innocent men, women, and children. The raid lasted 38 minutes, marking the end of one of the most expensive and prolonged manhunts in history. The 15-year pursuit, driven by the relentless determination of CIA analysts and painstaking intelligence gathering, ultimately brought Osama bin Laden, the world's most notorious terrorist, to justice. This operation is considered a major turning point in the global fight against terrorism. Bin Laden, a once ambitious leader, had abandoned power and wealth for his ideological battle against imperialism. He claimed that while his mission required money, he himself did not. However, extremism and radical religious views turned what he framed as a defense into acts of invasion and terror. After bin Laden's death, al-Qaeda evolved into a purely extremist religious terrorist organization, seizing cities in Yemen and establishing a branch in India. They proclaimed to save Muslims in the region from injustice and oppression, but in reality, they showed a blatant disregard for human lives. If bin Laden were alive today, would he see this as the realization of his ideals or merely a twisted mockery of them? That's the story for today, shared for informational and educational purposes, not to glorify or romanticize criminal acts. What did you think of this story? Leave your thoughts below in the comments so everyone can read them. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support this channel. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.